We'll quickly do introductions, and then we're going to do a bit of audience participation before we kick off into the main point of this session, where we're going to take you through some great work we've done here. So my name's Paul. I look after the Uber Ads team in London, which is relatively new, as you probably know. We're probably operational for about 6 months in reality, so it's nice to be here. I'll hand over to Ismael.
And I'm Ismael. I am the digital strategy lead at the 7 Stars. I work within the entertainment, culture, and youth team as well. So yeah.
Great, we're lovely to be here. Now I need the clicker. Oh, is it here? So first thing we're just going to do is give you a quick video to give you an overview of Uber Ads.
I should move from here.
That gives you a little bit of an overview of what we do. We're only going to focus predominantly on what we do in the rides side of our business today. But the team are here. If you need to speak to anybody about all of the opportunities we have within Uber, then happy to grab them here or later. So the first thing we're going to do is a quiz. There's a prize for this, so it is worth doing. And I'm not going to embarrass anyone in the process. So if you could all stand up, please. Bit of interaction. So for those people who haven't used an Uber, you can sit down. Good. We're doing well here. Who hasn't used an Uber in the last month? Please sit down if you haven't used an Uber in the last month. Okay. Who hasn't used an Uber in the last 3 weeks? Who hasn't used an Uber in the last 2 weeks? Blimey, this is going to be tough. Who hasn't used an Uber in the last week? Oh, okay. The last 5 days. The last 3 days. A few still standing. The last 2 days. Ooh. Yesterday. So we have, okay, so you've all used Uber today, correct? Right. Thank you. That's brilliant. Now, we have a prize, or we have a couple of prizes, but the only way we can determine the prize is what is your Uber score, Uber rating. If you don't want to share, that's fine. Mine is 4.71, just in case anybody worries that I'm not participating in this, which is not very good, actually, but it's fine. What is your rating? What's the best one? 4.32. 4.67 here. 4.75.
4.94.
You're the
Winner.
So thank you, everyone. So please, we will contact you afterwards and we'll give you a prize. Thank you. The point of this is obviously how we interact with our brand, how you all interact with our brand is pretty important, because that's why we're placing advertising within the opportunities that you have, both on the Eat side and on the Ride side. So thank you for participating in that. It's great fun. So what we're going to talk about, Ismael and I are going to talk about how we're working on mobile advertising, but we're going to give you a case study of something that actually really happened. And we're going to focus on how we deliver ads within our rider environment, which is what we call journey ads. And as you saw in the video, if those of you saw it, there are 2 types of operations, 2 approaches we take. One is what we do in Uber Eats, which is a probably more traditional retail media approach for most of you who understand, who are aware of that. And what we do in Uber app, for a rides perspective, is what we call journey ads. And obviously we have in London London's one of our big cities for Uber globally. And as we've seen from the audience here, many of you use us, so that's great. So thank you for that. So what we're going to do now is just talk through how we developed a journey ad for Warner Music. And Ismael's going to take us through the strategy, and we'll show you how it worked, how long it ran for, and all the things we do. Couple of things to point out before we go there. The average Uber ride is around about 20 minutes, 22 minutes, and the journey ad sits within that. So essentially, the time of this session is the average Uber ride. And the journey ad, we are seeing some very, very high engagement levels and attention levels within the experience. So Ismael, do you want to talk through how you at 7 Stars thought about this when we came and talked to you first?
Yeah, definitely. So for context, I sit within the entertainment team at the 7 Stars. Within that team, we look after different publishers. We look after 2 out of the 3 major records labels in the country, as well as different other entertainment brands. But within that, we got a brief, really interesting one for someone you might not have heard of, I'm not sure. But he's one of the biggest artists in the world at the moment, but Ed Sheeran, I don't know. But so we had a brief. His album Subtract was out this year, and then we had a brief to tap into his audiences. So one of the core objectives was obviously speaking to, Ed Sheeran fans. We had some brainstorms ahead of the album being released, and within that, it was deciphered that the sound of the album was really leaning itself into his his first few album fans. So I think within that we were just like, okay, how are we going to tap into this? This is something that we got briefed on. From that, we had Uber come in, so we spoke to Uber, we were talking to them, we were liaising with them about how could we bring this to life. And within the campaign, Ed had a few shows that he was doing. So he had a few shows in the run-up to the albums. He said he was doing intimate shows, but he was selling out the O2 on multiple nights. But yeah, he said he was doing the O2 intimate shows, so he was doing those shows. And then within that, we were just like, okay, this is great. Let's think about tapping into those audiences and how we can geofence those specific areas at those specific times when we know Ed Sheeran fans are going to be there. One of the questions I had when I was talking about this was well, anyone going to the O2 to see Ed Sheeran's an Ed Sheeran fan, so effectively you're speaking to someone that's already been converted. I think one thing here worth mentioning is the fact that we really struggle. So within music and within entertainment specifically, we sit on so much data, but at the same time, data's spread out throughout different types of third-party retailers. So we have Live Nation, we have Ticketmasters, and unfortunately, everyone's very protective over their data, so we can't necessarily tap into that when we want to. So within that, we're just we know everyone's going to be here for Ed Sheeran. Let's geofence these areas. Let's tap into these audiences. He did 5 shows throughout the UK, and then within that, we were able to be okay, we're going to tap into that, and we're going to make sure we utilize that, and we're able to retarget them with messages once his album's out within May. Sorry, just for context as well, these shows happened in March, so we were able to group those audiences and store them away somewhere. Yeah.
Right. So we created this campaign for Ed Sheeran. Now, let me explain how this works, and then Ismael will talk about the performance of the campaign. So what you see is, for those of you who obviously used Ubers, the confirmation screen where you're confirming your ride, we place an ad there. That's the first moment. Now that is swipeable, but it's not clickable for obvious reasons, because obviously if you clicked out of it, you would lose your ride, which I'm not think is a great user experience. So that's the first moment. The second moment is once you're waiting for the car to pick you up, then it drops down to a smaller unit. This is clickable. And the third unit is when you're on you're on your journey and you may be going back and checking how long before you're going to arrive. And then again, that is another clickable moment. Now, this campaign is very, very simple, but actually stood out brilliantly because the colors really stand out on the Uber app. And I think this is important. When you think about engaging with audiences at this moment, is how do you stand out in that moment? And I think creative here was very good. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just think it's worth mentioning within the entertainment team that I sit in, we're often always trialing and testing new tech. And I think this is something that's really important because, something we've seen is music and entertainment specifically sits at the forefront of culture and, what's done in the wider industry as well as the agency as well. But within this campaign, I think it worked really well because, as Paul mentioned, the yellow was really striking. And I think we were able to tap into, the disruption of the app, and Uber's very white and black based, grey based as well. So I think we were able to tap into that. People were obviously looking, oh, this is something we haven't seen before, but we saw really, really good results from this with a swipe up rate of 95%. This is the ad in action.
Oh,
no.
No. I don't think it's going to go. It's not going to go live, is it? Okay.
So this is the ad in action, and just contextually as well, just making sure that, you know, with the copy that we produced here, it was obviously speaking to fans that we know have engaged with the content or have engaged with Ed Sheeran previously. So I think this is something that was really important and added a nice personal touch to the campaign as well.
And the other thing is this campaign linked in, so the link screen, when you clicked on it, linked to all the streaming options, so you can listen to it on Spotify immediately, that type of thing. Which again, I think if you think about your own Uber experiences, it's quite a nice way. Maybe you just want to hang around and listen to a bit of album while you're waiting for your driver to arrive or whatever else happens to be. So in terms of performance, do you want to talk about performance, Ismael?
Yeah, so performance-wise, we saw a swipe-up rate of 95%, as mentioned, click-through rate of 3%. And I think something that was really important with this was, I'm not going to call out any other publishers, but I think when we target like programmatic spend or other display advertising, you know, we're lucky to see a click-through rate of maybe 1%. I think with this, the engagement was really, really good and really, really strong, with the client being really, really happy. And I think the next slide would be testimony to that, but I'll save that. So yeah, this is just a slide that the head of marketing got sent the weekend of release, just telling us we've gone a bit too far. But I think with this, it's really important, the cross-platform frequency, sorry. So obviously tapping into different audiences on different sorts of platforms, something that we all do on a day-to-day basis, understanding and realizing that we can't just focus potentially on social. It has to be in display, it has to be on VOD, it has to be an out-of-home. And I think within that, this will obviously play top of the mind reference, and obviously, hopefully, fingers crossed, people stream the track, which was the goal of the campaign.
The other thing is the time spent was around about 2 minutes. So the time spent in the ad. Now, if you go back to what I said about average Uber rides being about 20 to 22 minutes, so we're essentially grabbing about 10% of people's time in that moment when they are, you know, waiting for the ride to arrive and everything. And this is very consistent. Most of the campaigns we're running at the moment are seeing that as a standard, and sometimes even higher. Some people have tried gamification options as well, where you can put gamification within the ad unit itself, and again that encourages engagement. So this was a very successful campaign, and I think we also got some great insights both ways. So one of the things is obviously we started with the targeting based around people who've been to music events, and that was critical for the team at 7 Stars in order to plan for this. But we also got a lot of data back in terms of where people were dropped off and where the most engagement was. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think within this, we were able to contextually understand our audiences just that little bit more, get that deeper layer and deeper understanding. Obviously, we're not going to stalk them and see exactly where they're going from place to place. But I think, you know, for example, whether it was supermarkets or music lovers or restaurants, or different types of understandings and, you know, different types of offerings we can able to tap into for future campaigns as well. So I think this is something that we potentially will leverage going forward and potentially, you know, really see as a big, strong suit.
Yep. And we saw a lot of data around, for example, I think Coco came up as one of the key engagement places. So people coming out of Coco, having been to a music event there, were the most engaged because they were jumping in an Uber and they were going off somewhere.
Yeah, and I think even time of day as well.
Time of day was interesting.
Time of day was something that was really interesting as well. So obviously the campaign best performing days were, I think it was Sunday.
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday. So obviously just understanding how people utilize the app at those specific times.
So that's the sort of case study bit from, and we'll take questions in a minute. The couple of other things you should be aware of. We have a team that helps on creative execution because this is a relatively unique product in that sense. We will be adding, I think we publicly announced this, we will be adding video options to this product in time as well. But there is a lot of great learnings, I think, to be doing this right now. We're getting some really great engagement, some really interesting feedback in terms of data, and our consumers are pretty happy with it. I mean, from a contextual point of view, if it's the right context, then it's not a big issue from a consumer's perspective because we're not getting in the way. So that's the thing. That's the case study. Would anyone like to ask us any questions?
Aimlessly like I normally do. Perfect.
Hi, I'm JV from Media Rhythmics. Are you able to surface segments based on other criteria than, for example, the geofencing example is really good, but if someone says I want all the Amex users or other data you?
There are different. We are very careful with our data, obviously. So we will do certain things, and there's certain things we won't do. So we wouldn't go down to a building or a building targeting because we never think that's right. We all of our restrictions are actually on our website if you want to look at them. We won't target people going to hospitals or health centres or anything like that. So we're always doing the right thing. Within that, though, there's still quite a lot we can target against in an anonymised way. And the best thing is just to talk to the team in terms of what you're interested in and see whether we can deliver against it.
Excellent. Any more questions? See hands? No? Very calm. Well, that was an outstanding presentation. Thank you very much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Ismael and Paul.